Welcome to the Gen AI podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23, third episode for season 2. And It took us 23 episodes to record one in front of each other. Mm-hmm. It's great to be able to do this and look each other in the eye. Are we going to talk about anything or just lovingly stare at each other?
Maybe this is the point where we break up. Discover we don't like each other and walk away.
I'm not doing that. I've never met someone as thick as Dale. Like,
I know, right?
Like, I don't know what the background is behind you. It might be a wall. I don't know.
I'm quite dim. He means thick.
No, I think he meant unit.
Yeah.
Well, let's not concentrate too much on me because there's lots happened. We put out the impromptu episode last week.
Yeah.
Episode 22.
Emergency episode, whatever you call it.
Yeah, on DeepSeek.
You guys did that. That was too quick for me.
It was definitely knee-jerk anger reaction about all the misinformation.
But shortly after that, the reaction from OpenAI, right?
There's a lot of stuff that happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they've even gone one step further. I saw yesterday they're looking at sort of, what are they calling it, localized rules or something like that, geographical rules, where they're looking at GDPRs for specific areas. So now they're getting into the whole privacy, security.
Maybe all of those lawsuits are starting to have an effect. Who knows?
Maybe, exactly. But where do
I guess like they've changed the policy of how they deal with GDPR, which up until now was like don't and just restrict access, right? You can't use Sora. Yeah. In the UK or in the EU, you can't use operator.
Can't use operator. No.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. So, okay, Greg, we haven't seen you in a little while. I think this is your first appearance for season 2.
Mm-hmm. So let's start. I thought you were hanging out with Val.
Val and I were just.
So let's start with you. What's been happening? What's news?
What's been happening? What's news? What, in general life?
General life, AI for the listeners.
Yeah, I was thinking. The big thing that I've been looking at is actually more of the economic side. The whole stock price, share price of Nvidia, these kinds of things. Because tech is one, and I've held this belief for quite a while, which is fundamental infrastructure AI, which listeners is the core algorithms that will power vertical and diagonal softwares and operations afterwards, like the open AIs. That is accelerating towards being a commodity faster than I've ever seen a technology accelerate to a commodity before. Like, if you think about it, electricity took a long time to accelerate to what is, and arguably it's not a commodity as much nowadays, but that is accelerating towards one. And I don't think these companies can pump out free models fast enough.
No. Can I pick you up on something you just said there? Because I know you love this topic, acceleration. What do you mean by that when you say it's accelerating?
I'm doing a talk on
honey-potted right there.
There we go. Okay. Well, being a physicist.
I've heard this one.
Yeah. What I mean by this, actually, to be honest, Dale, I don't know what I mean by this. If I'm really frankly fair, what I mean is the speed in which. So there's a wonderful book by I forget his name, but it's called The Future of Physics, and interestingly, it's got a whole bunch of technology in there. It's I think it's by a gentleman called Kiko or something like this. But there's a chapter where he actually talks about the stages of technology. And it says that all technology can be seen progressing through 4 stages of development. The first stage is bespoke and held to a small few. So this is defense technology before you've got, when a large amount of the investment and the growth. So for example, GPS, things like this. The second one is expensive access. So you've got a number of institutions that have the large amount of funds to be able to access it. This is things like NASA with IBM computers during the space race. The third stage is called mass customization or mass access, which is where something is still costly, but people can access it. That's where cars are today. Cars are not an insignificant purchase, but every single person in the Western world has generally got one. And then the fourth level is full commoditization. And commoditization is where you don't restrict access. It's just a tap you can turn on. And the analogy is right there. That's water, electricity, internet now. If you think when internet came out, I remember my mum and dad were like, you've used up all the internet for the month, and it was the dial-up modems. Now it's just unlimited and it's just a speed thing. So internet is at a commoditization. So if you think about it, artificial intelligence was in stages 1 and elements of 2 for a long time. It was 1950s when really, or 1960s and 70s when the phrase was coined. And it was in there for a long period of time. And actually, the models then are infinitely worse than what are free models today. And it's kind of skipped stage 3 in that it still costs, but everyone has it, and immediately gone to just free unfactored usage. The only thing that I can think that has gone to that level of access is social media. So, it depends how you want to classify social and the media, but essentially the invention of YouTube and Facebook on a commoditized infrastructure, which was the internet access, has just jumped straight into stage 4. And I'm just seeing the models. Now, the thing that rocked the financial world was the fact that they just claimed that they trained this for about $7 million. And OpenAI spent hundreds of millions. That was enough to...
I ranted for an hour about this, so...
Exactly.
We've covered that.
But that's the thing that rocked. But it's this whole massive shift into commoditization.
I'm surprised you didn't mention cloud computing. So 2005, 2006, this is my previous career. When I was in HPC, we talked a lot in 2005 and 2006 how this would become utility computing. And I think utility is probably the word that we're looking for here as well, where you turn it on and off.
Utility
it's literally utility.
It is. It's very good. And actually in that book, they use computer chips as a perfect example because this level 3 of computer chips is the laptop. Because you have to buy a laptop.
That's level 3.
Level 4 is I don't even care.
Yeah.
I just buy storage and compute.
Yeah, level 4 is like AWS Lambda, where you're
exactly.
I don't care what it does, what's underneath. I just have the compute and it gets used when I need it.
Do we want to talk about chips? You brought up chips and you're watching the market. You brought it up in the first couple of episodes of the season L as well. You said you're not going to buy just yet while it's on the down. Have you changed your mind? What's going to happen? This isn't financial advice. This is
not financial advice. You must do your research. I did a bought last week. It's back. It's 127 today.
Okay, awesome.
Well, I mean, by the time this episode comes out, the prices will have changed by at least 10% anyway, so it doesn't matter. But
we're talking NVIDIA.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
Is AMD in the same?
No, TSMC is basically correlation 1 with NVIDIA now, but also Supermicro doing incredibly well today because they announced that they're ready to ship, literally in the warehouse, ready to ship with B200s in their servers, which is pretty good news, which I think is also what brought NVIDIA back up. Right? And remember what I said, first bit of good news, it's going to go back up because this is all hype.
Oh, right now it's 100% hype.
Well,
I say 100, a large percentage.
Yeah, we did an episode last summer, where there was a dip in the market. I can't remember what made the dip, but I remember you guys both saying as well, I'm buying on the way down, and then went back up.
Yeah,
from August.
Oh yeah, there was a big. Yeah, I remember there was a big crash in the market.
Went down to 99, 98, 99.
Yeah,
Funnily enough,
I bought quite a bit that week. Yeah.
I've got a friend, and the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this point in the video and send him the clip because he works at Hugging Face, and every time NVIDIA drops more than 3%, it's this is it. This is the time that NVIDIA goes down because everybody's going to switch to all sorts of other chips and all sorts of other tech. I'm yeah, dude, you've seen it. There's other things available, but it's just too entrenched, right? If you want to train a model, you're buying NVIDIA GPUs. You're not going down the route of some esoteric stuff that you're going to have to spend a month setting up, right? And we have like a little WhatsApp group, and every time he says that, and every time everybody else in the group mocks him, so shout out. I'm not going to say the name, but you know who you are.
Shout out to the invisible WhatsApp friend. But the other thing that you mentioned there, commoditizing, and what typically happens when things are commoditized, because one of the things that spring to my mind is that, and we said it before, a lot of organizations have built a product off a large language model. But what we've seen in the past few weeks, that anyone can do that now. And so you can't sell something that anyone at home can just create. So
you're correct. So there's three types of commoditization. There's what's known as general, fragmented, and monopolistic. So monopolistic commoditization is things like the national grid. There's one of them. But there's a lot of government regulation around it, and it's actually the legal frameworks that push the cost down generally in a space where you could charge monopoly rents on that. So they've got the production. The key thing about a commodity is that if you had two versions of it, so you know I've got a chip in one hand and a chip in the other, generally there's no performance difference or price difference between the two. That's fundamentally what it means. So a barrel of oil is a barrel of oil is a barrel of oil, or an internet megabyte is an internet megabyte is an internet megabyte, or clean water is clean water is clean water, or AI answer is AI answer is AI answer. So you might ask yourself then, well, what about performance differences? Well, then there's the question of, is it truly commoditized? The second one is fragmented commoditization, and this is where there is an element of specialization to it. So there's enough volume in the market in that you're not really comparing two things, but there's silos of it. So to be honest, computer chips fall into this category because you would go, okay, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a GPU or a CPU? They're different things, but they're essentially, in essence, commoditized to a large extent. You know, the machine that actually, the fab that prints those is like $100 million, and you're buying the world's most cutting-edge chip that cost $1 billion to develop for like $500. That's the definition. And then you've got full commoditization, which is essentially, that's, to be honest, oil. There are no variances. There's no fragmentation. There's no monopolistic control. I know people in the thing will be like, "What about the cartels in oil?" Okay, fine, but it's so general that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and take the conspiracy hat off for a minute. Like commodity, like by definition, you have full standardization. So if you trade feeder cattle on the CME, that feeder cattle contract says this is how many cattle you get. So feeder cattle is cows that are alive. And ironically, the contract for beef meat cattle is called live cattle, which they're dead. But that's a wonderful irony of commodity markets. But it defines like where it gets, like point of delivery, number, weight, everything else. And it even specifies like what type of cattle, right? So it's like, I don't actually remember because this was a long time ago, but like feeder cattle, I think is a longhorn or something like that. Right? It's not a longhorn, but like it will be well defined, right? So like it doesn't matter. In fact, like on exchange, you don't know who your counterparty is. If you buy a contract for 100,000 feeder cattle, which is the minimum size, by the way, you don't know who you bought it from. So, and it doesn't matter, right? It's that standardized. And I think there are things which like we're not quite there, right? Like even on chips, right? So like x86 chips are kind of interchangeable all over, but you have like faster ones, smaller ones, and ones that are good for gaming, ones that have more cores. But like,
it depends on the user. You're right, because actually you can have something that's a monopolistic commodity at the same time as a fragmented. Like, I'll give you an example. So AWS, to just a dude running a website, that is a monopolistic commodity, because once you're on, it's cheap as chips. You don't think about it, but you're never leaving because your things are on there. If you're a very specialist developer or a data scientist trying to do AI algorithms, then you're going to pick which chips you want to use. So that's a fragmented one. And then if you can get one of these providers that just balance between AWS, Azure, and Google, dependent on what price it is, where, and that's a full commoditized. So you can have all of them in the market, but it's the way I look at this is just, what does the average of the population look at this for?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'd say, to finish up, I'd say that with generative AI now, we're at a full commoditization point with open models like ChatGPT, because people just use it. It's fine. But we're actually at a level 3 with a load of enterprises, because they're figuring out how they're going to incorporate this into their operations or what they sell. And they haven't figured it out yet.
I think the dangerous thing there is that there's so many organizations whose business is, insert whatever you want, but not data science or AI, right? Like producing widgets, whatever, right? Who all of a sudden have decided, we're now an AI company, we're now a software company, so we're going to hire 5 data scientists and do our own thing with our own models. I'm like,
shout out, by the way, to Alan's LinkedIn. Anyone listening to this should join it, because today Alan decided that he's not following any of the rules no more, and he's just going on full assault.
Yes. Let's see if we can get Al to 10,000 followers.
I mean, we've got 400 on the podcast, so I'm not sure that that's going to add up, but sure.
I don't know. Well, I'm gonna like your stuff 10,000 times.
If any AI enthusiasts are listening to this, you want to create a bot for LinkedIn on Al's account? 10,000 followers, right?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see if we can get you up there.
Yeah, I'll pay $100 for it.
No, it's great. And okay, so we alluded to there what that means generally for our audience and AI in general. And I take your point in terms of, this stuff, yes, it's becoming easier, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
No,
right?
No, right? Like technically it's still very complex. It's easy to consume.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important point, right? Like it's easy to get into a car, to use Greg's example. It's very, very hard to build a car.
Yes.
Right? And like just because cars are everywhere doesn't mean that you should be building them, Elon. But it doesn't mean that you should be building them, right? Just buy one and get in it and get on with the things that matter with your life, right? Like it's a really good analogy. And sure, if you are a desperate enthusiast of building cars, then you buy a Caterham and you build it in your garage and you spend 5 years building it, and then all of a sudden you're on the M25 and it falls apart and you have to but that's part of the experience of, I want to be the enthusiast. It's not a good business idea.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Flipping back to the episode last week, what I see as the big variance in the market is that the hype investors had a wobble, because they were thinking that it was $250 million to $500 million to build one of these things, and someone claimed without evidence it was $6 million, and it went from being the whole monopolist commodity, so you buy from AWS, as Microsoft or Google, to crap, everybody's going to be punting this thing. And I'm not going to hold my breath on those things.
Yeah.
To be honest though, like my thought here is, if it really were true that it costs $7 million to train a model, that is good news, not bad news.
Oh, 100%.
For humanity,
yeah. Well, forget for humanity, like even for NVIDIA. Like, if it
everybody will be going after it. That
exactly, right? Yeah. Like, how many people will start building models?
Yeah. And I think you alluded to that on the last episode.
I did.
The impromptu one. And folks, if you haven't listened to Al's therapy session.
Yeah, I basically, that's the point where I started descending into insanity, and now it's just continuing. It's spilling over on LinkedIn and everywhere. So, yeah.
I basically said, hello, listeners, and was a monologue. No,
no, you're right. It pretty much was.
No, it was awesome.
I just had a stupid thought. Imagine every single bank in the UK decides they want to build their own AI, and they just use the AI to make better waiting music when you're trying to call them. Like,
I'm sure there's a startup that does that, though.
oh,
are you saying we should change our music intro to this pod? Anyway, we digress.
Probably.
The other thing that I think is confusing people, and I've seen a few memes and posts of this, is the whole what an AI agent is, and then this use of this term agentic AI.
So I'm going to sit back at this point and I'm going to let Alan just go nuts. And I'm going to enjoy this episode myself.
So what is AI? What is an AI agent? And what is agentic AI? Are they the same thing?
Can you see my eye twitching? At this point, I give up because nobody knows. Right? And
give us the Elon Musk definition.
But I think that's basically the reality, is that like everybody disagrees about what AI 100%. Is, what is AGI, what is an agent, what is agentic AI, and then there's like this. I think it's like a really great post. I think it was Carpathy or someone like very well known, who's like, stop calling your LLM based workflow an agent. And I'm like, okay, so now we got LLM workflows. And really, like we're trying to discretize a continuous scale, right? Mm-hmm. Where you like start with the LLM, forget everything else, like machine learning. Let's pack machine learning and everything else under the hood and forget if it exists, just because otherwise we've got too much to talk about, right? You start with an LLM. LLM gives answers about questions, predicts the next token. Then you're like, oh, okay, this is cool. I can get my LLM to generate instructions. Ooh. Interesting. How do I use those instructions, right? And so then you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to use my LLM to power new features in my product. Let's say do you use Miro or Canva?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like, or like, let's say PowerPoint, right? And you say like, the way that you describe a slide under the hood in PowerPoint is a very long markup. Let's call it like some XML. I don't actually know on the hood, but like, let's say it's XML, right? And then LLM can generate XML. So then you're like, I want a slide that does this, and you get it to generate the XML. So then you have these like LLM powered features which feel beyond what LLMs do, but it's actually still an LLM. And then you're like, okay, well maybe I can give it tools that it can call, right? So like now the LLM can issue a command to, I don't know, to my manufacturing facility to start 3D printing widgets. Let's leave it vague, right? So now you have like an LLM involved in some form of control system. And that's pretty much what people talk about as agentic AI. So like you go beyond the workflow, which is I'll describe what I want and I get some structured output that I then use somewhere else. And like tool calling is what people call agentic AI, right? So like I describe what I want, and then the AI can go like, oh, okay, I maybe need this thing, maybe I need that thing, and makes a couple like quote unquote decisions on the way. And then you have AI agents, which are supposed to be fully autonomous, right? So the best example, I think we spoke about it 2 episodes ago, that I have is Devin in software development.
Yep.
Which is a thing that connects to your Slack, Jira, all other sorts of platforms that you can talk to it and just like, hey, dude, I need to change my code to do this, right? And it goes and plans
and Devin does
itself, and it does it. Varying degrees of success, I have to say. Like we tried it, falls over 90% of the time, but that's the designed experience, right? And I think all of these things depend on the quality of the LLM under the hood, right? So we're talking about a little branch at the beginning. We've got O1 and R1 and O3 and all sorts of other agents where they're doing reasoning, which is a chain of thought, which is literally designed to make all those other things better, right? Because if you can do chain of thought, like even deep research in a sense, I think the way we're going to use that, so like it's not going to be only to produce research papers, but it's going to be better planning, better tool use, better agentic behavior. And cascade from there, right? But I think that's how I would define the ontology.
So I think that's great because it gives people understanding of actually, regardless of what you're calling it, this is what's actually being used and what it's doing in the background, and maybe you're calling it different things at different stages. It actually reminds me of our episode we did last season on definitions and why they're important. And I think I've had this discussion with both of you. We are going to a new project environment and someone talks about a baseline. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we can't define a baseline, can we even define what AI is? But I've got the perfect analogy, actually, right? So, like, you've got the LLM, which is your management consultant who shows up and says things and goes away.
Okay.
Right? And then you've got the agentic behavior, which is your consultant contractor that shows up, you tell it things, you give it confined set of space in which they're allowed to operate, and they do some things and they go away, right? But literally, they do what you told them to do. And then you've got agentic behavior is more like goal defined. So it's what you do like when you hire someone full time. It's like, these are your goals. I want you to operate in this way. Go be the role that I asked you to be.
So agentic AI is what people should be afraid of to take over their jobs.
Agents.
Agents.
Saying, right?
Agents, sorry, in your definition. But I love that there's a debate because, yes, the debate is out there, but it actually starts getting people on the journey of educating themselves by asking these questions.
Yes, to an extent. The reason that we need, or that we're having these debates, is because of just the power of marketing.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fact that I think in the last day I've seen 4 companies advertise that they've got AI agents and they've put agentic AI in their marketing materials, and they actually have nothing that isn't deterministic or stochastic but not reinforced stochastic or anything like that. It is just simulation. And it's like, okay, well, I've actually got to the point now. I had a different reaction than you, Alan. You went off on LinkedIn, and I agree and thoroughly enjoyed it. You went on the attack. I just gave up. I was like, do you know what? It doesn't matter anymore in the slightest, because it's really about the experience that people have. Like, does it feel like magic? Yes, cool. Then call it AI-ish, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter.
I guess so, right? But like,
I think we should come up with a new AI term and say that we've got that. Like, we have.
I've got it. So,
isn't that what every marketing department is saying, though? Like, I think we should come up with a new AI. That's literally what Apple did.
Exactly.
And called it Apple Intelligence.
Yep. I'm going to refer to this. So it's the level of competence that a group of AI models has, and I'm going to call it the Dale. Because Dale, coming back full circle to you're a large, powerful individual, Dale is a unit.
I'm just fat.
So the unit
the unit of measure of AI competence is the Dale.
That's full circle. Like, we can shut down the series here.
Drop the mics, everything. So that's a unit of measure. So we're calling it, what are we calling it? That's the unit of measure, but what are we calling
Dale.
A Dale.
So, like, you've got a watt.
Yeah.
You've got a watt. You've got a farad. You've got an ohm.
I think we need to use last name then. It's a fung.
Fung. Okay, a fung.
There we go.
Yeah, a fung. And a fung
so this AI
is a group of AI models that is as competent as Dale.
It's not a very competent AI then.
So like that's so like right now we're like at 0.3 fung.
Do you know what?
It's like max speed.
You'll have loads of tech companies calling Dale up saying we need to, and he'll just be sat in laboratories doing experiments the whole time, and they'll be measuring your competence on how you find blocks and things like this.
And then he screws the whole world up by getting better.
Yeah. What would be my opening stock price? I love this. We've just designed a whole new product. Any developers out there listening to us, give us your prototypes of the Dale.
Yeah, I'd say that the current AI models are about 3.03 fungs. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Cool. What next? What else is there? I mean, we just mentioned briefly about OpenAI reacting to DeepSeek.
Everybody is it's reactionary only because the share price has moved.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing that happened, right? So like, hat back on, right? So
tinfoil hats, guys.
Don't you love this being in person, right?
dude's running the hedge fund, orchestrate the psyop.
I love this. Yeah, okay, go.
Orchestrate the psyop, crash of Nvidia, short on the way down. They've now cashed out, I'm sure. Made $1 billion. Everybody's happy. Jensen calls Sam. Hey, dude, we need to do something about this. Can you help? And like, well, O3's ready. Should we just release it? It's like, okay, let's release O3, distract people a little bit. And then Satya gets involved and everybody starts piling on. And that's basically, I think, the cycle here. Because I don't think DeepSeek was ever a threat to OpenAI, right? The only thing that could be perceived as a threat, like, I mean, it is good news to everybody other than the guy at Bloomberg and the guy on the FT who misread the paper and published some stuff, right? Or whoever it was. Other papers are available. So, yeah, and now we've got like a series of accelerated release cycles, right? So like O3 Mini, Deep Research. Deep Research is the one that I think is very interesting because a lot of people are saying, and there's no evidence of this because you can't get evidence because you can't see what OpenAI are doing, but people are saying that it's actually not O3 Mini powering Deep Research.
Okay.
It's a better version of the model.
Really?
So it's probably what's going to come out as O3 Pro mode or something like that. And the Deep Research is kind of an early release of that.
In reaction to it. But the thing
Rumor.
is... So
right? I've seen it 5 times now.
Before DeepSeek, Gemini has got...
Oh, Gemini 2 Pro came out.
Yeah, but they've also got this research on 1.5 Pro. And that's pretty decent as well. I don't think everyone's got access to it, but... You know,
but that's kind of the thing, right? Like research is call it like agentic because what it's doing is like you've got an LLM, whatever it is, could be O3 Mini, might not be 1.5 Pro, whatever it is, right? And you say like, what things do I need to look for, right? And then you connect it to search, and it goes like searches for things, searches for different components, looks them up. It's like, and should I search for more stuff? Should I not? Right? And you run that in a loop. That's basically deep research in a sense. It's like, obviously it's more sophisticated than what I'm saying now, I hope. I don't actually know, right? Like nobody knows. Like if you work at OpenAI, you know. If you don't, you don't. And then when it's decided that it has enough information, it'll just be like, okay, I've got enough information. I'll compile all this together in a response. And I think that's an example of agentic AI, where it's like, the agent is more like operator, right? And I think you have a difference, right? Operators are like, I want to buy some shoes.
Is it Anthropic?
Here's my credit card number.
Is it Anthropic? I think that's got an app where you can install on your iPhone. I think iPhone and Android, where you can literally ask it to book you an Uber, and it opens the app and books it for you.
So Anthropic did computer use long before operator, but it's basically the same thing.
Okay.
Potato, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've been using Operator the last couple of weeks to like plan trips around Europe, and it's just so much fun, actually. Like again, the whole thing it's tuppence, it's a commodity, it's all of this kind of stuff, but it's genuinely fun. People, like the whole world is living in a hype cycle right now, but to the average person, I wouldn't like. I'm just like, this is just a bit of fun. This is cool. Like, I actually hope it gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
Just because of the annoyances that it will remove from life.
Yeah. So, okay. So I bet you there's some listeners listening to this, and they've got Dale, you've got in front of you, you've got the CTO of Nplan and the CEO of Nodes and Links. How's it going to affect what you guys are doing? Without giving away your trade secrets, I'm going to ask you the difficult question and see how you answer that.
Is the question, how's it going to affect what we're doing in terms of...
In any way.
Will OpenAI be a threat? Or will
just in general, I guess,
better models be a threat?
Everything that we've discussed with what's available. Is there opportunity? Is there threat?
Well, of course.
Is there
I'll kick off and I'll just jump in. So the way I see it is there is probably three things. So number one is verticalization, which is really about something that's good at doing things generally is not always great at doing things specifically, especially in an industry of mission critical decisions that need to be evidenced because of liability. So number one is there's a large amount of work to essentially focus that and fix it where you've got the best of both worlds. Number two is actually around the sensitivity and security of what you're doing. Like OpenAI is seeing lawsuits from some media companies about things it's published, but imagine the things that companies don't publish. Imagine their internal cost reports and their HR reports and all of this kind of thing. And it's how do you develop incredible competence in AI, agentic AI, agent, whatever it is, without mass access and looking at specificity and things like that. And then number three is what I'd call best tool for the job, which is one of the consequences of hype trains that I've seen in the past is everything can be solved by a hammer. And sometimes there are things that don't need hammers. Sometimes there are other tools.
There's like a cognitive bias named after it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the key thing is being able to understand in the long term what is absolutely going to be something best suited to whatever kind of AI versus something that is not. And also, where does that tipping point occur? Because there'll be things that are not best suited today, but will be best suited at a certain point in time with a certain level of competence and capability in the AI models. So it's actually about deeply understanding those kind of journeys and trends to come full circle and to kind of glue all of those together. The thing that matters in our industry more than anything else is go to market. It's access to customers, and it's actually getting approved by the contracting department, procurement, IT security, the governance policies, all of these kinds of things. So actually, I'm looking outside at this progression, and really the decision that we're making is the make or buy. It's with all of that in mind, what do we invest finite resources in building ourselves versus what don't we, given the context that we sit in? And that's just an ongoing thought process that just requires two things. One is deep reading to understand kind of all the facts, and two is just an element of taking a punt.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you said. In terms of like, how do we align to everything that's happened, right? Like, or is going to happen as well, right? We're not even 10% of the way, I think. Right?
Oh God, no.
And the reality is that, I'm going to quote Sam Altman again.
You love Sam.
I mean, I don't know Sam Altman, but...
Well, Satya follows you. He says everything you say, but a few months
says
later.
Everything I say, but a few months later, of course, right? He'll be posting memes in 2 months.
SpongeBob.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun memes in 2 months.
So, I think 6 months ago, something like that, Sam Altman said, you're going to have two types of businesses, right? Like, you're going to have the business that is under threat as models get better, and you have the business that gets better as models gets better, right? And a lot of what you've described is basically like, be that second type of business, not the first.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, like, the build versus buy decision does a lot to position you in one or the other, right? So if you are insert median construction company or median engineering company or median client of a construction company or a government, I'm looking at you, EU,
He's lost it, guys.
Don't build like the EU announced, like, and this is not me, this is them being completely unhinged, right? They're going to put 54 million euros, which is, comparatively the cost of this glass, into building a Euro LLM. And I'm like, no, right? Like,
some random government department will use that because it has to. It's the same as like, the IT networks that, I don't know, the police or the NHS get, which are terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't build it, buy it, right? Like, if you're worried about American influence, just use Mistral. It's made in France, right? Like, doesn't get more European than that.
Stimulating the economy, Al.
What? Yeah, give 54 million to Mistral in API fees, right? Like, that's a better use of the money. Anyhow, align yourself to getting better. It's like, if you decide to build, you better be building in a way that when 07 comes out, or it'll have a different name because they keep changing names, but when 07 comes out, what you've built has become better, not obsolete, right? Because a lot of, I see, and this is what I was getting at before, like, I see a lot of companies getting into this, like, oh yeah, we'll hire a couple of data scientists, we'll build our own LLM, we'll build our own thing, and because it sounds so easy, because fine-tuning a model is an easy process. You copy the code out of Hugging Face, you load in the model, and you do some question answers, boom, fine-tune the model. You don't know if it's good either, but that model is going to become obsolete when the next model comes out, and the next model comes out. So either you're pivoting the entire company to be an AI company. My advice is, if you're not an AI company, don't become one. Because it means that you have a different business, and don't throw that away because it's probably very useful. But if you do, you also better be vertical, because there's no amount of money that you can have and invest into building AI that is going to outrun the top 5.
Do you know,
Think of the amount of money that Google has.
I'll pull on a point you just said there, because it is a very, very critical point, which is, as things get better, you're a business that gets worse or gets better. With a lot of conversations I've had, people think that the businesses that get worse as AI gets better are the businesses that refuse to adopt AI. But actually, to your point, what I see is the death of most business. I'm not talking like small mum and dad companies. I'm talking like proper companies. The death of most companies is forgetting your competence. It's forgetting what you're actually alive for. So I've genuinely had a construction company come to me and say, we're not going to use anything from the market because we're going to build it ourselves because our data is valuable in some way.
I heard that one.
Yeah. I was like,
don't know if it's the same one, but I heard a couple.
I was like, good luck. Now, the thing is, right, these things will happen. And I found my view from the outside is that these things happen because of a complete lack of competence inside the organization to understand how actually things work, and just political aspirations. Because what will happen is a project will get set up, some minor things will be done, someone can add that to their CV, and then someone can jump ship and go elsewhere because it's a unique experience. Cool. What will happen is that company in 2 to 5 years' time will be 2 to 5 years behind the curve and come groveling to other companies to help them catch up, or they won't. But to your point, it's if you understand that your competence is not AI, don't be AI. Just experiment with AI. Oh, Jesus, that was loud. Experiment with AI in a way that's modular, where you can rip it out and throw it in and do whatever.
Yeah, I guess, like, I don't know of many construction companies that grind their own stones to make concrete. So if you're not vertically integrating on something that's directly into your business, why are you doing it with
that's
something
actually a perfect example. Because grinding, actually, concrete and things like lime, believe it or not, is almost a monopoly in Europe. There's like a handful of companies that do it
in the world, right? Like, aggregate, Cemex, and
it's incredibly geographically fragmented because it's a heavy commodity.
Yeah.
So the transportation cost from, for example, France to the UK is normally more than the actual production of the concrete in the UK. So if you're the concrete manufacturer, there's one near Heathrow. Yeah. That's it. You're it. And it's the same. Like,
I've seen it.
Yeah. If you're a construction company that puts up buildings and you're like, I use a lot of concrete, I should go into concrete. And I'm like, well, you better be buying up the entire European supply of concrete. Otherwise, what's the point? Yeah. It's the same thing here. It's a perfect example, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, gents, we are running out of time because Greg's starring in a show later.
Yeah. I have to go and do a dance.
Exactly. Well, it's better than a TED Talk, but it's that style. Project Connect Group is a shout out to Project Connect Group. Free on LinkedIn to join and come along and get the events in the UK and Australia as well. Just to quickly finish off briefly, we like to give some listeners at the end some productivity hacks, whether that's personal or other. We mentioned previously Gamma, Bolt. You mentioned Devon. Anything else you come across that you want to share?
I'm just going hard on operator. And you might go, how are you going hard on operator? VPN. VPN.
I think I'm somewhere to that publicly. We were in the US last week. That's when you used it, Wink.
That's exactly. I was in Philadelphia and we were in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like,
what's that? $200 a month?
What, VPN?
No. What VPN?
What VPN?
If I'm truly honest, I don't know because I've got a company card. So.
But for those who don't have
people on pro mode get operator, which is $200 a month.
Okay.
But you also get Sora, which you can't use in the EU. And you get deep research.
You can if you're
O1 Pro mode in just ChatGPT, which is very good. It's still better than O3 Mini, I think, at reasoning.
But you can get it if you're in the US.
Yes.
Yes, if you're visiting Philadelphia in the United States and using a VPN there for some reason.
I think anywhere in North America, basically like anywhere where there isn't GDPR, you're not going to get blocked.
Yeah. Just make sure your VPN is on when you're in the US so that you don't get, anyone attacking you, any viruses and things like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
spyware.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you buy a VPN.
Yeah, I was in Philadelphia. My VPN was Virginia, something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
We got out of that one. I'm a big fan of deep research. I'm a big fan of operator.
I haven't played deep research. I'm going to Google after this.
I actually really, really also like Claude Computer Use, which is like another version of operator. It's been around a little bit longer, so they've had ways of working out the kinks, but I think it does a few more things because it's not just using a browser. You can literally get it to use your computer. So technically the potential is a lot wider. You could teach it to use P6. You could teach it to operate your Outlook and delete all your emails and tell people that you've gone away or something.
This is
useful.
This is awesome. We've taken all of 47 minutes to give the nugget for our listeners.
Yeah.
That use P6. No, I'm joking.
But I honestly computer use is right now not a lot of people are using it, but it is really good.
No, absolutely. Look, folks, I think we're going to end it there because we have to get Greg's makeup on. And lipstick and paint his nails.
We're going to have to walk fast.
Exactly. But it's been awesome recording in person.
I know, we should do this again.
I really enjoy this. And the camera can't see everything, but I can tell you what, Dale has just emptied his wife's bank account or whatever it is on gadgets on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
You have got everything. It's great.
This is courtesy of our sister podcast, Project Chatter podcast. So thank you, Project Chatter. But no, the equipment's here. We're here, Al, all the time. So Greg,
I'm here all the time now.
When you're here all the time, we can do this more often.
Are you really?
Person.
Like once a week, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
I have to be careful because of tax, but that's another conversation.
Just use that VPN and you'll be fine.
Yeah, no. Also, you're not here once a week. You're here once a month, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Right, folks, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. Hope you enjoyed that one. If not, let us know. Bye for now. Take care.